Think about how much we rely on software every single day. Like, it's crazy, right? Banking apps, streaming services, it's everywhere. But have you ever thought about what keeps those digital gears turning smoothly?
I bet you can guess where I'm going with this.
Software testing.
Right.
You're right.
You got it. And you clearly want the inside scoop, judging by this stack of research you sent our way.
Well, get ready to dive deep because today, expert speaker and I are breaking down the world of software testing, making sure it's all, reliable and efficient and secure. We're going way beyond just turning it off and on again here.
Way beyond.
This is for anyone prepping for a product launch or just curious about what happens after someone finishes writing all the code.
All those lines of code?
Exactly. And one article I found fascinating used online banking as an analogy.
Oh, I can see why.
Like, imagine a bug pops up while you're transferring funds. Not good.
That's a perfect example of why software testing is so critical. It's not just about making sure things work, it's about building trust with users. People need to feel confident that their data and transactions are secure.
Makes sense. And speaking of confidence, I saw these articles mention a bunch of different testing types. It's more involved than I realized.
Oh yeah, it's a whole process.
One that caught my eye was unit testing. What's that all about?
So imagine you're building a house, right? You wouldn't just slap the walls and roof up all at once and hope for the best.
Definitely not.
Unit testing is like meticulously checking each part before assembling the whole structure.
So you're catching those little problems before they become major headaches.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you make sure all those individual parts actually work together once they're all pieced together?
Great question. That's where integration testing comes in. We're checking if the plumbing fits with the electrical, if the doors actually close properly, essentially testing the relationships and interactions between different parts of the software.
It's like making sure all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Okay, so you've got the individual units, then you've woven them together. What's next in this software testing saga?
Next comes system testing, the big picture view. We're looking at the entire application as a whole. Does it function as intended? We might simulate real-world scenarios here. Like, what happens when a ton of users access the system at the same time?
The real test. Speaking of real-world scenarios, there's this term I've seen but never fully grasped. Beta testing. It's always sounded kind of mysterious.
It's actually simpler than it sounds. Beta testing is like a sneak peek, a chance for actual users to interact with the software before it's officially released.
Interesting.
Think of it like a test drive for a new car. You get to experience it firsthand and provide valuable feedback.
So it's not just about finding glitches.
Yep.
It's about getting real user input to make the software even better.
Precisely. Your feedback during a beta test can directly shape the final product. It's a collaborative process, even if you don't realize you're part of it.
That's so cool. Okay, so we've tackled making sure things work together smoothly. But there's more to it than just, does it work, right? What about making sure it works well under pressure?
Absolutely. We call that performance testing, seeing how the software handles stress. Load testing, for example, simulates many users accessing the system at once. Think Black Friday or a big online sale launch.
Oh, I can relate to that. Nothing like a website crashing when you're trying to snag that deal.
Exactly. And then there's stress testing, which pushes the software to its absolute limit. We need to know, can it withstand a massive spike in traffic without crashing and burning?
Okay, so it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving in a chaotic digital world. It reminds me of another crucial aspect mentioned in these articles, security testing.
Right. With all the data breaches we hear about, it seems more critical than ever.
Absolutely.
Security testing is paramount these days. It's about identifying vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit.
So it's like hiring a cybersecurity expert to try and break into your system before the bad guys do, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting sensitive data, it's about safeguarding the software's functionality itself.
So someone could theoretically bring down an entire system just by exploiting a security flaw.
It's not just theoretical, it happens. Remember that time a certain ride-sharing app went down? Turned out to be a security issue. These things have real-world consequences.
Wow, that's a really good point. It's like you're constantly having to reinforce the walls of a fortress, always staying one step ahead.
Exactly. You've got to be proactive. And while we're on the topic of user experience, there's another layer to that beyond just security. We could have the most secure software in the world, but if it's confusing or frustrating to use, people won't use it.
Oh, tell me about it. I've definitely deleted apps because of that.
Right. Life's too short for a clunky interface.
Too short?
And that's where usability testing comes in. It's all about evaluating, how user-friendly the software is. How intuitive is it? How enjoyable is the whole experience?
So how does that actually work? Do you have people try it out and give feedback?
Exactly. It can involve observing real users as they navigate the software, getting their unfiltered reactions to the design and layout. We even time how long it takes them to complete specific tasks to pinpoint any bottlenecks.
Interesting. So you're trying to get inside the user's head, see the software through their eyes.
That's the goal. We want to identify any points of friction, any areas where users might stumble or get frustrated, and then smooth those out for a seamless experience.
Because at the end of the day, software is meant to be used by people, right? It's not just lines of code.
Right.
It's about, improving lives, connecting people, making things easier.
Absolutely. And the more intuitive and enjoyable that experience is, the more likely people are to embrace the software and recommend it to others.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Unit testing, integration testing, system testing, beta testing.weu. It's like a whole symphony of tests.
It is.
And then we've got performance testing, security testing, and usability testing. Did we miss anything?
We're on a roll.
Hmm.
And you're right, it's a lot to keep track of. There's one more crucial type of testing we need to touch upon, regression testing.
Oh, right. I've heard that term, but to be honest, it's always seemed a bit redundant to me. If you've already tested everything, why test it again?
I get where you're coming from, but here's the thing. Software is not static, right? It's constantly evolving.
Oh, right.
Every time you make a change, add a new feature, or fix a bug, there's a chance you might inadvertently introduce new issues elsewhere.
It's like that butterfly effect. One small change can have ripple effects you never even anticipated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even seemingly insignificant tweaks can have unintended consequences. So regression testing is all about making sure those changes haven't created new problems while you were busy fixing other ones.
So you're essentially safeguarding against those oops, I broke it moments.
Precisely. It's about maintaining the integrity and functionality of the software throughout its entire lifespan, not just at the initial launch.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's like that classic measure twice, cut once rule, but for software development.
Exactly.
And speaking of making sure things work smoothly across the board, what about all the different devices and platforms out there?
You've hit upon another critical aspect. Compatibility testing. It's easy to forget that people are accessing software on a ton of different devices these days. Laptops, smartphones, tablets, smart TVs, you name it. And they're all running different operating systems and browsers.
So you're not just testing the software, you're testing how it interacts with the whole ecosystem of technology.
Exactly. The goal is to deliver a consistent and enjoyable user experience, regardless of how someone chooses to access the software.
That makes sense, but with so many different types of testing, it must be incredibly time-consuming and expensive to do it all.
It can be. That's why companies have to be strategic about their testing efforts.
Hmm.
They have to prioritize based on the complexity of the software, the potential impact of any defects, and of course, their budget.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach to software testing. It's about finding the right balance for each project.
You got it. It's all about finding that sweet spot between thoroughness and efficiency. And, it's fascinating how this field is constantly evolving, just like software itself.
That's so true. It's like a never-ending quest for digital perfection. I have to admit, before this deep dive, I kind of took software for granted. I never really stopped to think about all the work that goes on behind the scenes to make it all look so effortless.
It's easy to do. We interact with so much software every single day that it becomes almost invisible.
Invisible, I love that.
But just like you wouldn't think twice about a bridge being structurally sound, we rely on rigorously tested software to navigate our, increasingly digital lives.
It's like we just scratched the surface of a hidden world. I'm starting to realize that software testing isn't just about, preventing glitches. It has far-reaching implications.
Absolutely. It's about ensuring that software is not only functional, but also secure, reliable, and user-friendly.
Hmm.
And as technology evolves, well, so too does the role of testing.
That makes sense. So much relies on the quality of software these days. What are some of the challenges facing the world of software testing, especially with technology evolving at lightning speed?
That's a great question. One of the biggest challenges is keeping pace with the sheer volume and complexity of software being developed. We're talking everything from, mobile apps to cloud-based platforms to AI and even self-driving cars.
It's like trying to hit a moving target while riding a roller coaster.
Uh-huh. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And with the rise of agile development methodologies where software is constantly being updated and iterated upon, testers need to be incredibly adaptable and efficient to ensure quality at speed.
So it's not just about finding bugs anymore. It's
Well,
about being embedded throughout that entire development process. Yeah.
exactly. Testers are becoming more integrated into development teams, working closely with developers and product managers to ensure that quality is baked in from the very beginning.
It sounds like the role of a software tester is evolving beyond just, technical skills. It requires strong communication and collaboration as well.
Absolutely. The ability to communicate complex technical concepts and to do it effectively to both technical and non-technical audiences, that's essential. After all, testing is ultimately about building trust. Trust in the software itself and between the people who create and use it.
That is a great point. Speaking of trust, I'm curious about the future of software testing. With AI becoming more and more prevalent, will we see AI taking over the role of human testers altogether?
I get asked that a lot. While AI and machine learning are transforming the testing landscape, I believe human testers will always play a vital role.
Interesting.
AI can be incredibly helpful for automating those repetitive tasks, analyzing huge amounts of data, and identifying potential defects. But it's human intuition, creativity, and critical thinking that are crucial for designing effective tests and ultimately ensuring the quality and usability of software.
So it's not about AI replacing human testers, but rather working with them,
Right.
allowing them to focus on those higher level tasks and strategies.
Exactly. Humans and AI working together in a synergistic partnership to create better software for everyone. And as software becomes even more integrated into our lives, the importance of this partnership will only continue to grow.
This deep dive has been eye-opening. It's amazing how much I've learned about a field I honestly knew very little about before. I have a newfound appreciation for the critical role that software testing plays in our digital world.
It's been my pleasure. It's always exciting to share my passion for software testing with others and really shed light on this, honestly often overlooked, but absolutely essential aspect of technology.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about. Next time I see a software update, I'll know there was a whole army of dedicated testers working behind the scenes to make sure it's as seamless and enjoyable as possible. Thank you so much for joining us today, expert speaker. I really appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. It was a pleasure diving deep with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of software testing. Until next time, keep those sources coming and we'll keep diving deep.